Well, hello, kindred spirits. How in the world are you doing today? I hope that you're doing great, and I'm so glad that you came back to see me. Thank you so much for sticking with me this past year. Thank you for all the likes and the sweet comments, and just for you coming back week after week to see the videos and interact with everyone else in the comments. It means so much with this little community that we've formed here. So thank you for that. And for any of you who have interacted in the new community posts area of my page, I feel a little embarrassed about this, but on my phone and on my computer, I can't reply to the comments or the posts that you leave. I believe I can like them, but I can't leave a comment. I'm still trying to figure that out. So anyway, that is for you folks. So you're welcome. If you ever have anything that you'd like to share with the community, with the channel, you're welcome to post on there. You can put up pictures, you can put up messages, you can interact. So please use it, because I would love to facilitate that community atmosphere that we've created there. So go ahead and say something over there. I'd love to hear from you. Well, today I thought it would be fun to share with you sort of a diary of this past week and tell you about all the fun things that we've got going on. And if you are getting ready to go to bed and you just want to hear the sound of my voice gently talking to you, you can just flip the phone over, and because I'm going to show you two things, and I'll do that first so that then you can just relax to the sound of my voice and you can just drift off to dreamland. You can close your pretty eyes and just fall asleep. Okay? Okay. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to tell you about is my garden. And I need to make a video and take y'all out there sometime and show it to you. But for now, I've brought the garden inside. And I think it's probably because of all the rain that we've had this year. But my garden has been prolific. Now, the rain has caused a lot of problems, and I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the video. But it has been good for my garden and a lot of people's gardens in the area, as a matter of fact. I believe it has also kind of held back the Japanese beetles. The Japanese beetles are the bane of my existence, and usually by this time of year, my roses are wiped out by the Japanese beetles, but not so this year, and I'm not entirely sure why. Again, I'm wondering if it has to do with all the rain. That's the biggest difference that I've seen this year, because typically we're very dry in the southeast, in zone 8A, throughout the whole month of June. So this has been a big change. But let me show you. Oh my goodness. This thrills me to pieces. If only we had smell-o-vision. This rose smells so good. I want to lick it. It smells so divine. Now, the marigold has a little bit of fragrance. I like the smell of marigolds. Not everybody does, but I like the smell of them. Nothing else really has a fragrance. But let me show you these first. These are dahlias. And these mesmerize me because I'm going to get this name incorrect. Is it the Fibonacci sequence? I've mispronounced that. Somebody correct me in the comments section. It's the numerical sequence. I don't even know enough about it to even tell you what it is. Look it up. You'll find it pretty quickly. But so many things in nature have it, and these do. And I mean, look at that. I'm looking at that on the camera right now. That yellow in the center, it's like hypnotic. Do you not feel that way too when you see that? That is hypnotic to me. I just thank you, Lord Jesus, for the beauty of these flowers. I get crazy excited and grateful for things like this, y'all. I cannot help it. I'm so grateful. I always dreamed of having a garden of my own that I could go out and pick flowers from. And I have it now, and it just, I will never stop being grateful for this. And I tell my husband all the time, thank you for working so hard for us so that I can grow flowers. Now, I work not a whole lot in my esthetician business, but that feels like play. It doesn't even hardly feel like a job. This is not a job. YouTube, trust me, is not a job. This is a hobby. I get paid pennies doing this, but I love it. I love being here, so that is fine. Nothing, you don't always have to monetize everything you do, right? So anyway, how do we get off on that? Going back to the flowers. This is a zinnia. And we talked last year, do you say zinnias or zinnias? I go back and forth. But I want you to look at this purple one. The way this one grew, some of the petals came out of the little center here, and it almost looks like a butterfly lighted on it. And then there's that salmon pink color, which I love so much. And then we'll turn this back around, and there's another one. My hydrangeas are just bursting. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to go out there and cut it back a little bit because there are so many heavy heads on the bush that it's leaning over and it's not quite as pretty as it can be. So I'm going to have to cut back some of them. And my daughter, have y'all ever seen the dried hydrangeas before? It's such a pretty thing to look at. They typically keep their color, but they just dry up. And a lot of times they keep their shape too, and they don't wilt. Years ago, my daughter put some in her bathroom, and she was a little kid. And I said, how did you learn how to do that, Lainey? Because they turned out perfectly dried. She said, I don't know. It just happened. So anyway, I let her take care of the drying of the hydrangea heads if we ever want to save any for maybe fall wreaths or fall arrangements. So they're so pretty. But again, I wanted to share that with you because I love how those look, and it makes me so happy to look at it. They're only... It doesn't take a whole lot to make me happy. Some good books, some beautiful flowers, and the love of family, and maybe a good food every once in a while. And that's about all I need. But anyway, so let's move on to the next thing I wanted to tell you about. I just painted my chicken coop. Chris built one for us about a month ago. We got some chickens earlier this year, and we raised them up from day-old chicks, and so now they have graduated to the coop outside, and they are so fun and so funny. They are hilarious. They're so comical, and they're very curious too. And so I was out there painting the coop today. It's just like plywood, and so I painted it. Of course I painted it pink, and it's the same color. It's called Cabbage Rose, and y'all have seen videos of our little farmhouse. It's the same color as the doors at the farmhouse. And so do you know what a hex sign is? A Pennsylvania Dutch hex sign? Well, if you're not familiar with them, it's a folk art, and it's Pennsylvania Dutch folk art, I believe, and I've bought a couple of them throughout the years. We bought some up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania a few years ago, and I love the way they look. And so I'm going to paint one of those on the door of the chicken coop, and you can see it. If you pull into our house, you can kind of see it off behind the house, and so I just want to make it pretty. It's just fun to look at. But the chickens they're pets. I mean, they're just sweet little pets. They eat out of your hand. You do have to be careful though, because you don't want them to think your finger is a nice pink juicy worm, because they will bite it and that hurts. But they eat out of your hand, and they were out there watching me earlier this morning as I was painting their chicken coop, and they look at you with their side eye, because they got eyes on either side of their head, and they look at you as you're doing work out there. It's just so much fun to watch them and feed them, and just listen to their sounds that they make. It so relaxing to go out there. And they should be starting to lay eggs in August, so they'll be ready to start laying then. So we're really excited about that. But yesterday, I went to go buy my paint at our local Ace Hardware in Locust, and it's the best store. I love going over there. I'm so grateful they're there, so I don't have to go clear into town, like Matthews or Albemarle to go to the bigger Lowe's. I can just go to the little hometown store to buy most of my things. But anyway, that's where they sell that particular paint color that I'm looking for. It's Cabbage Rose by Magnolia Paints, and that is a Joanna Gaines paint color. So anyway, I was there having my paint mix, just shooting the breeze with the people who worked there, and I was looking around and I came across this deck of playing cards. And I flipped it over, and I don't even play cards. I don't play games. I'll fix something for you to eat while you play a game, but I just don't like to sit and play games. But anyway, I picked these up, and I didn't have my glasses with me, but, I saw that it had pictures of fruits and vegetables. And I was talking to the lady who was mixing my paint, and I said, I believe that's the prettiest deck of cards I've ever seen. I don't play cards, but I'm going to start playing cards with this pretty deck of cards. So I bought it, and it was only $6.99, and took it home. And last night at supper, I was so happy, and I pulled these out, and I was showing my husband and daughter and son. And as I opened up these cards, I was leafing through them, and my heart kind of sank. And I put my glasses on so I could see them better, and sure enough, I could be wrong, but I think they're all AI generated art. Now you might be wondering, so what, Lindy, or how do you even know that? Well, they have no soul. The pictures, from a distance like that, and that little bitty image, it looks like it's maybe a hand-painted piece of art. But as I opened it up and was gazing upon them, I really don't think that they were human-generated. I think that it's AI art. There's no name anywhere. Not that there always is. Sometimes the artist is not credited, but it was just a disappointment. And I know that might sound silly to some, why would you be disappointed in that? But I like human touch. I don't want a computer generated image. I want to know that a human being sat behind these paintings and painted them. So my plan is I'm going to write to the Yankee Publishing Company, because the people who put these cards out are also the people who publish the Farmer's Almanac, the old Farmer's Almanac. And for years, they've had human beings make the art for the old Farmer's Almanac, and I've always enjoyed looking at it. And I'm just going to ask them, hey, is that AI art? Just want to know, because I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to dismiss AI. I think it can be very helpful in lots of avenues, lots of ways, but not art. That has to have a human touch. I'm sorry, it has to be human made. So anyway, that was a soapbox that I shouldn't have got off on, but I did. So if you see these cards, unless you love AI art, I would not pick them up, because they're not what I thought. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk to you about is when we were discussing all that rain earlier and my flowers growing, every morning what I do is I put my little outdoor shoes on. They're not galoshes, but they're like little slip-on shoes that I got from the Tractor Supply. They're kind of rubbery, and they've got strawberries on them. Anyway, I'm in my robe. I'm carrying my cup of coffee. I go outside. I let the chickens out, and I feed them. And then I make my round all the way around the house, and I look at all of my flowers that I have planted in my garden. And I'll pick tomatoes, or I'll pick strawberries, and I'll drink my coffee along the way. And it's just the most pleasant way to start the morning out. And again, I believe everything looks so lush this year because of all that rain. So that's the good part of having all the rain. The bad part is what happened yesterday on I-40 on the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Last year during Hurricane Helene, 40 was just wiped out, and it was closed for quite some time. They managed to get it back opened up again, and it was only 2 lanes, and we've traveled back and forth multiple times along that route, especially after my father passed away, and everything was going fine. It took, instead of the 4.5 hour trip, it took about 5.5 hours to get over there, but it was fine. Well, we've had a lot of rain this week, and there was a giant rock slide, and it messed up 40 again, and they've had to close it again. And thank the Lord, nobody was hurt, but it scared me to death to think about it, because the sun was shining at one point, and somebody had it on video, all this water that was coming off the mountain. And sure enough, that water just came down, and people had to get out of their cars right quick. Their cars were submerged in water, and they had to get out. And that could have been any of us too. And it just scares me to death. I mean, you just don't know. You don't know. But again, thank heavens nobody was killed or hurt. But isn't that crazy? Just crazy weather that we're having. But I'm grateful again that nobody was hurt. I'm grateful for the rain, but I wish it would let up just a little bit, because it seems like it's too much. Now, yesterday I made something that I love to eat. Maybe not necessarily in this fashion, but I'll tell you the reason why I made it this way in a minute. But it is liver. Now, I know that is not for everybody's taste, but I grew up eating liver and onions fried in bacon grease, and it is just delicious to me. I love it, and it is so good for you. It's a great source of iron, and I just found out that it's a wonderful source. It's the best source of copper, and I didn't realize that we needed copper in our bodies. And I found that out because I have developed sleep apnea, I think. I'm not entirely sure why I'm having it right now. Typically you get it if you've gained weight or if there's an obstruction. There could be an obstruction. I'm praying that's not the case. I'm going to the doctor to find out soon. But I have a thyroid issue, and they're going to check out to see if I have any nodules on my thyroid. That could be something that could be causing it. But I have woken up in the last couple of months. I every time I drift off to sleep, I will kind of snore and snort. I won't do it here because I don't want to disturb you, but it'll jerk me awake, and I have had to sit up in bed and catch my breath because I don't have any breath, and my head's hurting and my chest is hurting, and I've had my heart checked out. Everything is fine, but I have stopped breathing, and so it's kind of scary. And so with that, I'm going to go to the doctor and have it checked out, but I'm also trying to figure out why would I suddenly develop this. And it is a copper deficiency from what I've read. So rather than try to make liver and onions every single day to eat as a meal, what I've done is I've dehydrated it. I have a big dehydrator, and so I took it last night. I put it on my little trays, and I dehydrated it for about 10 hours. I'm probably going to have to dehydrate it just a little bit longer, some pieces, because they're not quite, I think there could still be a little bit of moisture content in it, and I don't feel real safe storing it like that, so I want to try to get out every bit of moisture that I can. And so every day I'll eat some of that dried beef liver, and as sort of an inoculant or a vitamin. And anyway, it's also to get that copper into my system, and we'll see how that goes. But another reason why I made it is because I make jerky all the time too, beef jerky. And what I do is, Walmart is the only place that I've been able to find it. Sometimes I can find it at Asian markets too. There's a dish called shabu shabu, and it's also like a hot pot dish. I think hot pot may be Korean, shabu shabu is Japanese. But you take your raw meat and you pick it up by your chopsticks, and you put it down into a boiling broth, and you cook it for a few minutes, then you eat it. It's so good, so good. So anyway, they have that type of meat at our Walmart, and it's just it's not super thin sliced, but it's thin enough sliced, and it looks like little pieces of beef jerky before being dehydrated. So what I typically do is I just salt it, and we just enjoy snacking on it. It's not really a snack around here because my family wolfs it down like it's like they've never had jerky before and they haven't eaten in 4 days. It's crazy. They love it. But the reason why I just made some fresh is because a young friends of ours, they're friends of my children, my adult children, and they come to dinner with us every Sunday just about. But anyway, they have a little girl and they just had their little second baby girl, and she was born 2 weeks ago and everything was fine, but they saw that she had one of her valves in her heart did not close properly after she was born. So it was kind of an emergency and they had to go in and put a stent in. And so she's going to be okay. Hopefully, she'll be coming home this week. This is her second week in the hospital, but her parents don't want to leave her, with very well understood why. But they're also very clean eaters, very healthy eaters, and so hospital food is not the best stuff at all, and it's expensive to go out to eat too up there. And so I went and saw them and the baby couple of days ago, and I brought them some beef jerky, and they were so grateful for that jerky. It's just beef and salt, but it's good protein, it's good iron, and it'll help with milk production for our friend who's nursing the baby, and anyway, it's all around good. But I had mentioned to the husband that I was going to make some more for him, and I was also going to make some liver jerky too. And he jumped on that train and he said, "Oh my gosh, could you please make some more of that? I will pay you for it. I'd love to have some of that." Anyway, I said, "No, you will not pay me for it. I will give it to you." But anyway, I'm going to bring some of that up to the hospital probably tonight or tomorrow to him too, and give him some of that liver jerky as well. But it was so coincidental because I had just gotten home from the hospital on Tuesday visiting them. We went up to the Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte, and I got a message from my Airbnb notification. There was a lady who was saying she wanted to book our place because her grandchild had been sent to the Children's Hospital in Charlotte, and she was flying in from another state. And so I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. What's your grandbaby's name? We'll pray for him." Meanwhile, I just got back from there today. As a matter of fact, I know your grandchild will be treated very well and have the best care because they are an excellent hospital. So isn't that a coincidence, though, that two different children, in the same week were admitted to that hospital? But they do a really good job up there, and they take very excellent care of the children. So I'm grateful that none of mine have ever had to go up there. But if you need the care, it is the place to go for sure, the Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte. Now this week I'm going to be making up another big batch of soap, 2 batches as a matter of fact. I got some new soap fragrances. One is called Watermelon Sugar, and I believe that's a dupe. It may be a Bath and Body Works fragrance, I'm not sure. And then the other one is called Apples and Sage. And so I'm excited about making those batches of soap. I haven't made soap since last year, but it's always so much fun to make it. And I'm so proud because, last year, some of you who've been around the whole time may remember, from time to time, I will put on what I call homemaking and homesteading classes. And last year I held them down at the farmhouse. Sometimes I'll have them up here at my house, and I've been doing it for years. And so last year I had a class a month, and I just taught a different subject. And I taught herbal medicinals and soap making, bread making, jam and jelly making, living on one income. I think, as a matter of fact, I made a video about that last year. And bread baking. So there's just a whole gamut of things that I've taught throughout the years. Well, one lady in particular came to all the classes, and I think I've told you before, it's so endearing to me when somebody goes off from my classes and creates their own business. That's the best to me, because I also teach people I tell people what I did in the past. I don't have any secrets. I just tell them how I sold my items. I'd go to the farmer's market, set up farm stands, and then if you get on social media and talk enough about what you do, people will come to you also. And so that's what I did for years. But anyway, I'm so proud of her because she just invited me to like her page on Facebook, and she is going full force, and she's making salve and beauty creams and soap, and she's making sourdough bread. I didn't teach her that part. She already knew how to do that, but I'm so proud of her for doing that. And it's so endearing when people go on and use those tools that they learned to make a little business like that. And then, the community loves things like that. They love to support small businesses like that too. So that's always a good thing. Now, going back to the gardens for just a minute, my daughter-in-law Rachel and my son Nate just celebrated their 1-year anniversary. And some of y'all may remember last year I showed you a picture or a video in which I was planting some seeds for the garden, and I'd mentioned that Rachel could use those as extra wedding flowers if she wanted to. And then I think I also showed you part of a video, I think I did, of me making a wedding quilt for Nate and Rachel, and I gave it to them last year after their wedding. So now our son Wesley is getting married, and so I took Sophie to pick out her fabric for her wedding quilt last week. And so she was so sweet. She got in there, and it's hard to choose because there's so many different fabrics to choose from, but she figured out the color scheme that she wanted, and we bought all the fabric, and I got to get to work because they're getting married in September. So I want to make sure that I get this one done in time for her shower, which is August. So I should be able to do that. But I was so proud of Rachel. She came over yesterday, and she was so proud because she and Nate grew a garden in their backyard. And so she brought a bunch of cucumbers over, and they had gone on a trip for their anniversary and came back home, and she said it was like magic. All these cucumbers had suddenly grown in their garden. But I had their wedding cake, the top of their wedding cake, in my freezer in the basement. And so my daughter took it over to their house last week, and I think that they got to eat a slice of it because it's an old tradition. I don't know if y'all know about that you're supposed to save the top of your wedding cake and eat it on your 1-year anniversary. And I don't think it ever tastes very good, but that's okay. It's just a sweet little tradition. But so then, speaking of my daughter Lainey, so as I was pulling out my quilting materials for Sophie and Wesley's quilt, I started thinking about a quilt that is 21 years in the making. And I pulled it out again, and I've been reworking on it. It's called Grandmother's Flower Garden, and if you're not familiar with it, it could be thousands of hexagons in the shape of flowers, and that is the top of a quilt. And I started working on that right after Lainey was born, and that was way back in 2003. And I'll put it away for a time, forget about it, and then from time to time I'll pull it back out again. And I only have 2 more flowers to make. I'll have to show you sometime. And then I can start piecing the quilt together. And I told her I hope that it will be ready for her once she gets married. It will be her personal quilt though, because I'm only going to make it like a lap quilt size, not a big one that will cover her bed. She could even use it for one of her babies if she wanted to, because it's a small sized quilt. But you talk about a labor of love, because this is all hand pieced. This is like a couture quilt, and it just takes so long. And I've not ever been one to sit. I don't like to sit, and I'm kind of a busy person, and so I think I've told y'all before that I have that Martha energy. If you're familiar with the Bible story of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, Mary is the sister who sat at Jesus's feet and listened to what he had to say. And Martha was the sister who was always busy, busy, busy. She would be cleaning or cooking or preparing, and a lot of times they will say, it's kind of like a type A and type B, but I definitely have the Martha energy. And so I'm busy, busy, busy all the time, and I need to work on my Mary energy more. That's what this channel has helped me do quite a lot, because it forces me to slow down. And even though I'm not using my regular speaking voice and I'm not whispering, I am meeting in the middle, and it's giving me that slowing down Mary energy so that I can kind of calm down a little bit and just watch and observe things. But it's very difficult for me because I am the firstborn daughter of 2 firstborn children, so I can't help but be type A sometimes. But I don't know where I was going with all of that, but all that to say, I guess we were talking about Lainey's quilt. I have been working on that in the evenings, and it's been a lot of fun just sitting there and piecing that together. Which brings me to another thing. My husband and I, we're the same age. We're 6 months apart. He's 6 months older than me, so we're same generation, and we grew up, the Beverly Hillbillies. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with that TV show. We grew up seeing it, but neither one of us ever watched it because we didn't like it. Because the Hillbillies were Tennesseans, and we thought they were stupid. And they were portrayed as being stupid on TV. And then us living in a tourist town, the tourists, I'm sure they were joking, but I didn't like it. And so the tourist would come to town and say, "Hey, Ellie Mae, where's your outhouse? Why have you got shoes on, Ellie Mae?" And it would just piss me off. And so I didn't like it. And so a lot of it was because of what they saw on the Beverly Hillbillies. So both of us grew up not liking that show because we thought they're the Beverly dumb heads, It didn't make any sense to us why they were so dumb. So anyway, Chris and I started earlier this year watching the Beverly Hillbillies again, and we started from episode 1, and we went all the way through to season 2, and the whole time we were thinking, well, this show isn't so bad after all. They're endearing. They're not as nearly as stupid as we thought they were when we were kids. Well, hold on. Season 2 came about, and that's when they started making them stupid, because we were watching things, and Chris is from the mountains where the Beverly Hill, and I know it's fictitious, I know it, it's just a TV show, nothing's real, but it did kind of aggravate us a little bit, because there was an episode in which they went hunting for some onions, and they pulled up some daffodils, and they had the daffodil bulbs and the daffodil flowers on top, and they were saying, "Well, Granny, this don't taste like any onion I've ever seen." And I thought, that is not true. No mountain woman in the world would be that dumb to think that a daffodil bulb with daffodils growing on top of it was an onion. And they were talking about, Granny was giving out gifts for Christmas, and she was going over her special care packages, and she was giving Mrs. Drysdale a package of owl balls and candied catfish and I think possum feed, just ridiculous things. And Chris's mother is a mountain woman, and she would make those care packages. There's no such thing as candied catfish. It's so silly, but but she would give these beautiful things away. She'd make all this beautiful candy, all this mountain candy, and lots of women make it. You don't have to be from the mountains to make this kind of stuff. But my point is, we were right about the Beverly Hillbillies. They are stupid. They became stupid in season 2, and I blame the writers for that. But that's just the way it goes. But So I had to quit watching the Beverly Hillbillies. We decided, okay, we've got to watch something else now. So we've got to find a new 30-minute program to sit down and watch. But it was fun while it lasted. Now, something else that I've been working on, I always have at least 3 or 4 projects going on at once. And that's probably much to my detriment, because a lot of times I won't complete that project because I'll jump to something new, forget about the old one, and then go back and say, oh, I forgot about this, and then I'll have to finish it up. But so one of my new projects is I am working on a dress. There is a lady on YouTube, and I don't know her channel name, but it could be Poppy Lou, Poppylu, but that's what her tag says. But she makes clothing out of vintage linens, a lot of vintage tablecloths, and it is so much fun to watch her. And she makes shorts. I don't even think she really makes full-length videos. But there's another little gal that I love to watch. It's called Dine in Creativity, and her name is Rachel, and I've mentioned her before too. She's a doll, and she also was showing a vintage tablecloth that she bought that she was planning on making something with. As a matter of fact, she did. She made a dress, a sundress. And so after I watched both of those girls, I thought, you know what? I've got some vintage tablecloths. And I use mine, though. I do use mine, but I've got some that are kind of worn out and need a new life. And so I found a vintage dress pattern in my stash. It's a sundress, and I got a beautiful red table. It's a red and white tablecloth. It's a white background with red roses and green stems. It's just beautiful. And so I cut it up and I used that as my fabric for my dress. And I've learned over the years smartly, they always tell you to make a muslin first, or a toile, or a mock-up of the dress in cheap fabric before you use your fashion fabric, because you want to make sure that, first of all, the silhouette is going to look good on you. Second of all, you want to make sure of the fit, and you just want to make sure you've got it right before you cut into that expensive fabric, or in my case, that vintage tablecloth. So I had some red fabric, and lots of red fabric, and so I made my mock-up with that red fabric, and it fit fine. And so I did have to make a few adjustments, and then I transferred it to my tablecloth, and I've got the bodice all cut up and sewn up, and then I have got the skirt too, and I've just got to join those together. But I was watching something on YouTube the other night. It just happened to show up in my feed, and it was about haute couture. Couturier, I may be mispronouncing that. It's French, and I'm obviously not French, but it's high fashion. It translates into high fashion. And it was a show about the fashion houses in Paris, and how these very, very wealthy women will go to Paris every year, and then they will have, like, the Dior house make clothing for them. And some of these dresses can cost starting at $20,000 all the way up to $100,000, because not only is everything handmade, like the beading and everything is handmade, but a lot of times they don't even have sewing machines. They just do very little sewing machine work. I mean, everything is hand sewn together. So it's very labor intensive work, very skilled work. And I have lots of books about how to sew couture fashions, how to sew and make seams so that they are very professionally finished and very tailored to your body. And those ladies, every one of them who they interviewed were giddy, because they would talk about how all the clothes fit them just like they were putting on a glove. It's like wearing a second skin. And I would love to have somebody make something like that for me, but I can't justify spending $20,000 on a suit, so that's never going to happen. I could make my own if I sat and practiced enough. And I can't say that I've got the skills to do it, but it's just like anything. It's you can learn it. It's a learned skill. It's a learned art. And those ladies wearing those fashions are wearing pieces of artwork on their bodies. So all that to say, I was making my tablecloth sundress, and after watching that, I realized I have to line my dress now. And so I got a little lazy though, because I'd already made my mock up in that red fabric, and the red fabric happened to match perfectly the red roses. And so it probably would have looked best if I had lined it in a white fabric, but I got lazy and I didn't want to do that. So now my tablecloth, my vintage tablecloth sundress, I'll show it to you when it's finished, is going to be lined in a red fabric. And so I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see it. If any of y'all have ever seen Gone with the Wind, you may remember the part where Mammy had her red silk petticoat on underneath her skirts that Captain Butler bought for her. So anyway, it reminded me of Mammy's red silk petticoat when I put the lining, my red lining under my tablecloth dress. But I'll show it to you once I get it made so you can see it. I'm excited about it. Now, one of the other projects that I have going on right now is I'm working on developing my art style. I have always been creative, but I got serious about, I want to say 2014. I started watercoloring, and then I moved on to acrylics, and then I've gone to oil paints. And as a matter of fact, here's some acrylics right here that I've painted in the last couple of years, but I moved to oil paints late last year. And I'm in love with oil. I love, love, love painting with oils. My grandfather was an oil painter, and I have multiple paintings of his on my walls, and I'm just in love with the process. So I'm working on developing my art style. And it's going to take a little while, but I'm having fun. I'm having so much fun with the process. So right now I'm working on painting some seahorses, and I'm going to do a series of 3. I have 2 of them painted. I'm working on the last one. And so I'm learning about color contrast, color theory, and how, if you use dark and light values, you can make the colors pop more on the canvas. And I think it's kind of good too to work in a series of the same thing so that you can work on practicing, maybe perfection is too strong of a word, but just work on practicing that same thing over and over again. And then once you get that developed, you can move on to a different animal. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun studying seahorses. I think seahorses are fascinating to look at, fascinating little sea creatures. And there are so many multiple colors I didn't realize. And so when I get those finished, I'll show them to you too. And then one other thing I wanted to tell you about, I got 2 more things to tell you about that I think that you might find interesting. As again, many of you know, I am an esthetician, and in beauty school we learned about red light therapy and the benefits of it for your skin. And there haven't been a huge amount of studies, but there have been enough to say that it does have some benefit for your skin. It's very minimal in getting rid of fine lines and wrinkles, but it also can help, the blue light can help with acne scarring. Now again, it's very minimalistic in what it can do, but it's enough to do a little bit more research and maybe a little bit more study with. And so I reached out to a company called Mesama, and I'm doing the test right now. I'm giving it a 30-day test, and after I do that, if and only if I find it worth making a video, I will make a video for you on that. Now, I'm kind of excited about it though. I've only had it for a week and I use it every day. It's a mask that you wear on your face and you just lay down for 9 minutes at a time, and you also use this rooibos tea serum on your skin before you put the mask on. But I'm seeing a difference, and I'm going to keep studying on it, and I'm going to use it. And again, if I deem it worthy enough to tell you about, I will make a video on it for you. Now, it will be a sponsored video, and I'm telling you this because I mentioned at the very beginning of this channel, of this video, that I make pennies just about on these videos. I don't do this for any monetary value for me. I do it as a hobby and for fun. And because I don't have mid-roll ads, I don't make as much money. Please don't think this is a telethon where I'm trying to get you to give me money. I'm not. That said, I know a lot of YouTubers make their money by doing sponsorships, or they get sent different products to review, and they either get paid to make those videos or they get free products. Well, I don't want to make videos on just anything. And so I did do a sponsored video last year for Teddy Blake because I do love their purses, and every woman needs a good purse, and so I do feel good about them, and so I said yes to that collaboration. But I get offers for collaboration 2 or 3 times a day in my inbox, and so much so it's a little bit it takes some time to go through them. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that the companies have reached out, but I don't take them. I don't accept them all because, again, I am not going to make a video about something for you to buy just to increase the crap that you have in your house. And I'm sorry to be so frank about that, but I'm not going to do that. I don't like it when people talk about something like you have to have it, and then maybe you even pay the money for it, and then you find out it's not really worth anything. It's just a way somebody earns their money. It's just like a commercial on anything, you know. And so, but a lot of times those things are a lot more expensive. Again, I don't want you to think that everyone who takes collaborations or sponsorships is bad by any means, because I do it too. I'm very, very, very picky about who I collaborate with. So that is why, again, I am really doing this test with this red light therapy before I'm going to even consider making a video on it. So if I see good results, I'll make a video and I'll let you know all about it. Now, the last thing I want to tell you about is a book excerpt that I'm going to read to you on our next video together. I'm not sure if any of y'all are familiar with the author and artist named Susan Branch. I adore her. She's been around for a good while now. I think her first book may have come out in 1983, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong about that. She is the loveliest person. She was born, I believe, in 1948, if I'm not mistaken, and she's the oldest of, I want to say, 7 children. So she had just an idyllic childhood in the 50s. She reminds me a lot of my Aunt Debbie, and she's just a great all-around person. I don't know her personally, but from her books and from her artwork, I just love her. I adore her. So I have a collection of her books, and some are cookbooks, but she writes some of my favorite types of cookbooks because she not only has a recipe, she has a story many times that go along with the recipes, and then she does the most beautiful artwork, the most beautiful little endearing watercolors. And so I've always loved her work, and I've had calendars over the year of her artwork. She just does such a great job. So she wrote 3 I guess you would call them memoirs about her life. She's written one about her time in England, and one called Fairy Tale Girl, and I forget the third one, but anyway, Fairy Tale Girl is my absolute favorite. I have read that book multiple times. It's thick. It is about her entire life. And again, it's peppered with the most beautiful artwork throughout it. Well, she was born right in the height of the Beatles era. And my father and my aunt were also born during that time period and were huge Beatle fans. To hear my father tell the story of the first time that he saw the Beatles with my Aunt Debbie on the Ed Sullivan Show was just an entertainment in itself, just listening to his story about it. It was great, and he retold it so well. So in the book Fairy Tale Girl, Susan Branch recounts the time that she actually met the Beatles. This story is okay. I'm not gonna cry. Lindy, I don't know what is wrong with me. I get so emotional about other people's excitement. It is the best story in the world, and I'm gonna read it to y'all on our next video. I have read it aloud before. I had some cousins to come stay with me the cousins that actually I visited down in Waverly, they came and stayed here, and they were big Beatles fans. And we were sitting around the kitchen table, and I read that story to them, and they loved it. So anytime I meet a Beatles fan, I send them this story because it is the greatest story ever about meeting the Beatles. So whether you're a Beatles fan or not, I think you're really going to love hearing this story. And I pray, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. I'm not going to read the whole book, of course, but I am going to read this story to you, and I pray that it's okay with Susan Branch. If anything, it's going to make you want to go out and buy the book, and that's my hope, that you will become a Susan Branch fan, because she is awesome, and her writing style is wonderful, and her art is wonderful too, and I hope that you'll become a fan of hers just like I am. So, my precious friends, I hope that you enjoyed that very, very long chit-chat, kind of a diary about my last week, and you just enjoyed hearing a little snippet of my life, my creativity, my gratefulness, and the gratefulness for the life that I have, and my gratitude for each and every one of you. Oh, one last thing. Let me say this right quick too. The book of Proverbs. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. There are 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. It's almost a guidepost for living. In July, there are 31 days in July, 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. Every single day, I'm going to have a video for you in which I read a chapter from Proverbs. I think you're really going to enjoy that, so I hope that you'll stay tuned for that as well. So, anyway, back to my closing. Thank you so very much for sticking with me, and I truly appreciate you. And if you're still around, if you're still watching, please give this video a thumbs up. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. It pushes the videos out to more people. It grows the channel, and it just gets more people engaged in the audience, and I love that so much, because y'all are so important to me, and I just love interacting with you and just hearing your stories too. So y'all take good care, my friends. I love you, and I can't wait to see you on the next video.